The morning sun cast long shadows across the shooting range at Fort Benning, Georgia. Sergeant Maya Rodriguez adjusted her position behind the spotting scope, watching the newest batch of sniper candidates struggle with their qualifying shots. Most would fail. The statistics were brutal. Only 12% of candidates ever earned the coveted sniper tab. Next shooter, Lane 7, called out Master Sergeant Williams, his voice carrying across the range like a drill instructor's bark. Maya watched a young woman step up to the firing line. Private Sarah Chun looked barely old enough to drive, let alone handle a precision rifle. Her slight frame seemed dwarfed by the massive M24 sniper weapon system she carried. The other candidates snickered behind her back. Maya had heard their whispered comments all week. She won't last through morning PT. Command's just checking diversity boxes. Wait until she tries to carry a wounded soldier. Maya knew better than to judge based on appearances. She had learned that lesson the hard way during her own sniper training 15 years ago. Back then, she faced the same doubt, the same whispers. Now she was one of only 12 female snipers in the entire United States Army. Private Chin settled into her shooting position with surprising grace. Maya noticed her breathing technique was already better than most candidates managed after weeks of training. Chin's grip on the rifle was firm but relaxed. Her cheek weld against the stock looked natural, practiced. "Where did you learn to shoot?" Maya called out during a brief break between firing sequences. Chin looked up from her rifle maintenance. "My grandfather, Sergeant. He was a Marine sniper in Vietnam. Started teaching me when I was 8 years old with a .22 rifle in his backyard." "What did he teach you about the mental game?" "That the hardest shots aren't about distance or wind," Chun replied without hesitation. "They're about patience and timing. He used to say the rifle doesn't fire the bullet, the mind does." Maya nodded approvingly. This kid understood concept that took most soldiers years to grasp. But understanding and applying under pressure were different skills entirely. The qualifying course at Fort Benning was designed to break candidates. Shots at varying distances from 300 to 800 meters. Multiple positions, prone, sitting, standing. Time limits that forced quick decisions. Wind conditions that change by the hour. And always the psychological pressure of knowing that failure meant reassignment to regular infantry. Chin's first day scores were respectable, but not exceptional. She hit 68% of her targets, which put her in the middle of the pack. The instructors paid her little attention. In sniper school, middle of the pack meant eventual failure. Only the top performers advanced to the specialized training phases. But Maya noticed something others missed. Chin's missed shots weren't random. They formed a pattern that suggested she was fighting the rifle instead of working with it. Her breathing was slightly rushed during the timed sequences. Her trigger pull showed microscopic inconsistencies under stress. These were fixable problems for someone with the right mindset. During the evening cleaning period, Maya approached Chin's station. "Mind if I take a look at your rifle setup?" Chun immediately straightened to attention. "No, sergeant. Please go ahead." Maya examined the weapon carefully. The scope mounting was solid. The rifle had been properly zeroed, but something felt off about the stock adjustment. "How tall are you, Private?" 5 feet 4 inches, Sergeant." "And your grandfather?" 6 feet 2 inches. Maya smiled slightly. "I thought so. Your length of pull is set for someone much taller. That's why you're fighting the rifle position. Here, let me show you." For the next 30 minutes, Maya helped Chun adjust her rifle configuration. The buttstock length, cheek riser height, and scope eye relief all needed modification to match Chin's smaller frame. It was basic gunsmithing that any experienced shooter should have caught on day one. Why didn't the other instructors notice this? Chin asked. Maya chose her words carefully. Sometimes people see what they expect to see instead of what's actually there. The next morning brought a significant weather change. Strong crosswinds gusted across the range, making shots at longer distances extremely challenging. 3 candidates had already failed their qualification attempts before lunch. Chin approached the firing line with her newly configured rifle. Maya watched through her spotting scope as the private settled into position. This time, her form looked natural and relaxed. The rifle seemed to fit her like it had been custom-made. Targets at 600 meters, Master Sergeant Williams announced. Crosswinds at 15 to 20 miles per hour, variable direction. This is your second qualification attempt, Private Chun. You need 80% hits to continue in the program. The target seemed impossibly small through the scope at that distance. Add in the swirling wind patterns, and even experienced snipers would struggle with consistency. Maya held her breath as Chun took her first shot. Clean hit, center mass. The second shot struck just outside the scoring ring. Chun paused, reading the wind flags downrange. She made a slight adjustment to her aim point and fired again. Another center hit. Maya watched Chun work through the entire string of fire with methodical precision. She took time between shots to read the wind conditions. Her breathing remained steady, even as the time limit approached. Most importantly, she didn't let missed shots affect her concentration on the remaining targets. When the final shot broke, Chun had achieved an 85% hit rate under some of the most challenging conditions the instructors had seen all month. The other candidates stared in surprise. A few of the instructors exchanged glances. Decent shooting, Private, Master Sergeant Williams said grudgingly. You advanced to Phase 2. That evening, Maya found Chun cleaning her rifle in the armory. The private looked exhausted, but determined. Good work today, Maya said. But, it only gets harder from here. Yes, Sergeant. My grandfather warned me about that. He said sniper school would test everything I thought I knew about shooting. What else did your grandfather tell you? Chun paused her cleaning routine. He said the hardest part wouldn't be the shooting. It would be proving to myself that I belong there. He said doubt kills more snipers than enemy bullets ever could. Maya recognized wisdom when she heard it. Chun's grandfather had understood something fundamental about the mental aspects of precision shooting. Confidence wasn't just helpful, it was essential for success at the highest levels. Over the following weeks, Maya watched Chun progress through the increasingly difficult training phases. Urban shooting scenarios, moving targets, extreme weather conditions, night firing exercises. Each challenge seemed designed to eliminate more candidates. Chun struggled with some of the physical demands. The heavy equipment loads during field exercises pushed her small frame to its limits. But she adapted by focusing on efficiency over brute strength. She organized her gear more carefully than larger candidates. She planned her movements to minimize wasted energy. Most importantly, she never complained or asked for special consideration. The other candidates gradually began to respect her quiet competence. When Chun offered advice about reading wind conditions or target engagement techniques, they listened. Her shooting scores consistently ranked in the top 5 of the remaining class. But Maya knew the real test was still coming. Phase 3 included the most challenging shots in the entire program. Extreme long-range targets that pushed equipment and shooter skills to their absolute limits. Many candidates who had succeeded up to this point would fail when faced with shots beyond 800 meters. The range officer briefed the challenge that would determine who advanced to final testing. A single shot at 900 meters in variable wind conditions. The target was a steel silhouette barely larger than a dinner plate. Each candidate got only one attempt. Weather conditions on testing day were brutal. Winds gusted up to 30 miles per hour with constantly changing direction. The temperature hovered just above freezing, making precise trigger control even more difficult. 5 candidates had already missed their shots when Chun's turn arrived. Maya positioned herself behind the spotting scope, focusing on the distant target. At 900 meters, even a small error in wind calculation or range estimation would result in a complete miss. Chun would need perfect execution of every fundamental shooting skill she had learned. Chun approached the firing point with her usual calm demeanor. She spent several minutes studying the wind flags positioned at intervals downrange. Maya watched her make calculations on a small notepad, figuring windage corrections for the varying conditions. The private settled into her shooting position with deliberate care. Her rifle position looked solid and stable. She cycled through her breathing routine several times, waiting for the right moment to take the shot. Through the spotting scope, Maya could see Chun's crosshairs moving slightly as she tracked the wind patterns. The shot would require split-second timing to catch a brief lull in the gusting conditions. Chen's rifle remained steady as she waited for her opportunity. Seconds ticked by. Other candidates had rushed their shots under pressure, but Chun showed the patience her grandfather had taught her. Then Maya saw it, a momentary decrease in the wind flag's movement. Chun must have seen it too, because her rifle settled into perfect stillness. The shot broke with a crisp report that echoed across the range. Maya immediately shifted her spotting scope to the target 900 meters away. The steel silhouette rang with the distinctive sound of a direct hit. Master Sergeant Williams checked his own spotting scope to confirm the impact. A slow smile spread across his weathered face. Outstanding shot, Private Chun. Welcome to Phase 4. The achievement sent ripples through the remaining candidates. Chun had just accomplished what many considered an impossible shot under terrible conditions. More importantly, she had done it when elimination was the consequence of failure. Maya felt a surge of professional pride. She had recognized Chen's potential when others saw only limitations. The private's success validated everything Maya believed about identifying and developing exceptional shooters. But Maya also knew that Phase 4 would present entirely different challenges. Advanced fieldcraft, stalking exercises, mission planning under pressure. The shooting skills that had carried Chen this far were just one component of becoming a complete sniper. As the candidates dispersed for evening chow, Maya approached Chun near the armory. "How do you feel about making that shot?" Maya asked. Chun considered the question carefully. "Grateful, Sergeant, and ready for whatever comes next. Your grandfather would be proud." "I hope so. He always said the military would test more than my shooting ability." I'm starting to understand what he meant. Maya nodded. Chun was beginning to grasp the full scope of sniper training. Technical proficiency was just the foundation. The real challenge was developing the mental toughness and decision-making ability needed in combat situations. That night, Maya updated her training notes on Chen's progress. The private had exceeded every expectation so far. Her shooting scores ranked second in the class. Her adaptability under pressure was exceptional. Most importantly, she maintained her composure and confidence even when facing elimination. But Maya had seen promising candidates fail in the final phases before. Phase 4 would test skills that couldn't be taught in a classroom or practiced on a static range. Success would depend on Chen's ability to apply everything she had learned under realistic field conditions. The first Phase 4 exercise was scheduled for the following week. Candidates would be dropped in unfamiliar terrain with minimal equipment and required to identify and engage targets of opportunity while avoiding detection by opposing forces. It was the kind of challenge where small physical size could actually become an advantage. Chen's ability to move quietly and find concealed positions might prove more valuable than raw shooting ability. Maya looked forward to seeing how the private would adapt to these new demands. Chen had already proven that underestimating her was a mistake. The question now was whether she could maintain that performance level when the stakes were highest. Dawn came early to the North Georgia mountains. The Phase 4 training area stretched across 30,000 acres of dense forest, rocky terrain, and hidden valleys. Sarah Chun stood with the 7 remaining candidates as Master Sergeant Williams outlined their most challenging exercise yet. "Welcome to Hell Week," Williams announced, his breath visible in the cold mountain air. "For the next 5 days, you will demonstrate every skill we've taught you." Marksmanship was just the beginning. Now we test whether you can think, move, and shoot like a sniper. Maya Rodriguez watched from the instructor observation post as Williams continued his briefing. She had seen dozens of candidates face this final test. Most would fail not because they lacked shooting ability, but because they couldn't adapt their training to unpredictable real-world situations. "Your mission is simple to state, difficult to execute," Williams continued. "Multiple high-value targets will appear throughout the training area over the next 5 days. Your job is to identify, track, and eliminate these targets while avoiding detection by the opposition force hunting you." Chun listened intently as Williams explained the rules of engagement. Each candidate operated alone with minimal equipment. No predetermined firing positions. No spot this. No support personnel. Just individual skill against a hostile environment and active opposition. The opposition force consists of experienced Army Rangers who know this terrain better than you do, Williams added. If they detect you, you're eliminated from the program. Questions? A candidate raised his hand. Sergeant, what constitutes a successful target engagement? Clean hits at verified range using proper field techniques. Miss your target, you're done. Take a shot that compromises your position unnecessarily, you're done. Get detected before engaging, you're done. This exercise has a 90% failure rate for good reasons. Maya had participated in this exercise as an instructor for 5 years. She had seen candidates break under the psychological pressure of operating alone in hostile territory. The combination of physical exhaustion, mental stress, and technical demands proved overwhelming for most soldiers. But she sensed it might be different. The private had demonstrated unusual mental resilience throughout training. More importantly, her small size and careful movement habits were well suited to the stealth requirements of advanced fieldcraft. Each candidate received identical gear, ghillie suit materials, basic survival equipment, rifle with limited ammunition, and a communications device for emergency use only. Everything else depended on individual skill and adaptability. Chen drew a starting position in Sector 7, a heavily wooded area with steep terrain and limited visibility. Maya knew the sector well. It offered good concealment opportunities, but required careful navigation to avoid natural obstacles that could trap an unwary candidate. As the candidates dispersed to their assigned sectors, Maya moved to the instructor command post. Multiple observation teams would monitor the exercise from concealed positions throughout the training area. Their job was to evaluate candidate performance without interfering with the scenarios. Maya's assigned sector included Chen's operational area. She would spend the next 5 days observing and documenting the private's performance under the most realistic training conditions the Army could provide. The first 24 hours tested basic survival and navigation skills. Candidates had to establish concealed positions, locate water sources, and plan movement routes while avoiding Ranger patrols. Most would focus on finding the most comfortable hiding spots. The smart ones would prioritize positions that offered both concealment and tactical advantages. Through her high-powered observation scope, Maya watched Chen work methodically through her assigned area. The private moved slowly and deliberately, taking time to study terrain features and identify potential firing positions. Her movement discipline was excellent. She avoided skylines, used available cover effectively, and maintained noise discipline even when she thought no one was watching. By evening, Chun had established a well-concealed observation post overlooking a valley that channeled foot traffic between adjacent sectors. Maya nodded approvingly at the position selection. Chun understood that successful snipers didn't just hide. They positioned themselves where targets were likely to appear. Day 2 introduced the first target scenarios. Cardboard silhouettes would appear briefly at random locations throughout the training area. Candidates had to detect, identify, and engage these targets while maintaining concealment from the Ranger opposition force. Maya watched Chin's first target engagement through her spotting scope. A silhouette popped up at approximately 400 meters across the valley. Chin took several minutes to study the target and calculate range and wind conditions. Her shot was clean and accurate, hitting center mass before the target disappeared. More importantly, Chin's muzzle flash was effectively concealed by her firing position, and she waited a full 10 minutes before moving to a new location. Many candidates made the mistake of relocating immediately after shooting, creating movement that the Rangers could detect. The opposition force had already eliminated 2 candidates by the end of day 2. Maya heard the radio calls announcing their capture. Both had been detected while moving carelessly between positions after missing their shots. Chun continued to demonstrate sound tactical judgment throughout the exercise. She engaged only targets she was confident of hitting cleanly. She used natural terrain features to mask her movement between positions. Most importantly, she showed patience in waiting for ideal engagement opportunities rather than taking marginal shots. Day 3 brought the most challenging scenarios yet. Moving targets appeared for brief windows of opportunity. Wind conditions deteriorated significantly. The Rangers increased their patrol frequency after locating and eliminating another candidate. Maya observed Chen's response to these increased pressures. Rather than becoming more aggressive, the private actually slowed down her operations tempo. She spent more time observing before moving. She passed up several questionable shot opportunities rather than risk compromising her position. This conservative approach paid off when other candidates became impatient. Maya heard radio traffic indicating 2 more eliminations. One candidate missed a difficult shot and was spotted by Rangers investigating the sound. Another was caught moving too quickly between positions in daylight. Only 3 candidates remained active by the beginning of Day 4. The exercise parameters changed significantly for the final 48 hours. Instead of stationary targets, candidates would face realistic scenarios requiring them to track and engage human role players representing high-value targets. These scenarios tested not just shooting ability, but tactical decision-making under pressure. Maya received updated instructions, placing her in a forward observation position where she could monitor Chen's final challenges. The remaining scenarios would push the private skills to their absolute limits. Chen's first scenario involved a simulated enemy commander conducting a meeting in a contested area. The role player would appear briefly at an abandoned cabin approximately 600 meters from Chen's current position. But Ranger security teams patrolled the area aggressively, making approach and engagement extremely dangerous. Maya watched Chun study the problem for over 2 hours before making her move. Instead of attempting a direct approach to the cabin area, Chun positioned herself on high ground overlooking the most likely route the target would use to reach the meeting site. The tactical patience paid off. When the role player appeared on the forest trail approaching the cabin, Chen had a clear shot at 500 meters with adequate concealment and multiple escape routes. Her shot was clean and immediate, followed by a carefully planned withdrawal to a secondary position. The exercise evaluators confirmed a successful engagement. Chun had eliminated her target without detection and successfully evaded the responding security forces. It was a textbook demonstration of sniper tactics under realistic conditions. But Maya knew the final scenario would be the most challenging yet. The last test always pushed candidates beyond their comfort zones to see how they responded when everything went wrong. Day 5 dawned with deteriorating weather conditions. Heavy rain and high winds made precision shooting extremely difficult. Visibility dropped significantly in the forest environment. Most importantly, the final scenario would require split-second decision-making under maximum stress. Chen's target was a high-value role player who would appear at one of 3 possible locations within a 30-minute window. The catch was that 2 of the locations were heavily defended by Rangers, while the third offered a brief opportunity for successful engagement. Maya positioned herself where she could observe all 3 potential target locations. She watched Chen study the problem through her rifle scope, evaluating options and planning contingencies. The weather made observation difficult even with high-quality optics. Raindrops on scope lenses, wind affecting bullet trajectory, limited visibility, masking target identification at longer ranges. Everything that could complicate a sniper's job was working against the remaining candidates. Maya heard radio traffic indicating another candidate elimination. Only 2 remained. At 1,430 hours, movement appeared at the first potential target location. Through her observation scope, Maya could see it was actually a ranger dressed to resemble the target. Chen apparently recognized the deception and held her fire. Many candidates would have taken the bait and revealed their position. 15 minutes later, the actual target appeared at the second location. But Maya could see Rangers positioned to triangulate on any firing position that engaged from the obvious approach routes. Again, Chen held her fire rather than take a shot that would likely result in her elimination. With only 10 minutes remaining in the target window, Maya wondered if Chen would get any engagement opportunity at all. The final location offered the best tactical situation, but there was no guarantee the target would appear there. At 1,457 hours, the target moved into position at the third location. Chen would have approximately 90 seconds to detect, identify, and engage before the window closed. Maya watched Chen work through her shooting sequence with methodical precision despite the time pressure. Range estimation to the target. Wind calculation in the gusting conditions. Breathing control in the cold rain. Trigger control with wet hands and equipment. The shot would be challenging under ideal conditions. In the current weather, it bordered on impossible for most shooters. Range was approximately 700 meters. Crosswinds gusted to 25 miles per hour. Rain made target identification difficult through the scope. Chen's rifle settled into perfect stillness as she prepared to fire. Maya could see her waiting for a brief lull in the wind conditions. The shot had to be timed perfectly to have any chance of success. Through her spotting scope, Maya saw the muzzle flash as Chen's rifle fired. The report echoed across the valley, immediately followed by the distinctive sound of a bullet impacting the target. Direct hit. Mission accomplished. The exercise controllers confirmed Chen's successful engagement and called an end to the final scenario. After 5 days of continuous pressure, only Chen and one other candidate had successfully completed all requirements. Maya felt a surge of professional satisfaction as she watched Chen begin her movement to the extraction point. The private had exceeded every expectation and demonstrated the complete skill set required of an elite sniper. But Maya also knew that Chen's journey was far from over. Completing sniper school was just the beginning. The real test would come when she applied these skills in actual combat situations where the stakes were measured in human lives rather than training scores. As the candidates gathered at the extraction point, Master Sergeant Williams addressed the two survivors with obvious satisfaction. "Congratulations," he said simply. "You've earned the right to call yourselves snipers. But remember that this is where your real education begins. Everything you've learned here is just preparation for the challenges you will face in the field." Chen's expression remained focused and determined. Maya could see that the private understood the magnitude of what she had accomplished, but also recognized the responsibilities that came with her new qualifications. That evening, Maya found Chen preparing her equipment for the graduation ceremony scheduled for the following day. "How does it feel?" Maya asked. Chen looked up from cleaning her rifle. "Like the beginning instead of the end, Sergeant. My grandfather always said that earning the qualification was easier than living up to it." Maya smiled. Chen's grandfather had been wise about more than just shooting techniques. The mental discipline and warrior ethos he had instilled in his granddaughter would serve her well in the challenges ahead. "Any regrets about the path you chose?" Chen considered the question carefully. "No, Sergeant. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Everything else was just preparation for this moment." Maya nodded. She had recognized Chen's potential from the first day of training. Watching that potential develop into proven capability had been one of the most rewarding experiences of her teaching career. Tomorrow would bring the graduation ceremony and Chen's official designation as a qualified sniper. But Maya knew that the real measure of Chen's success would come the months and years ahead when she applied these skills in defense of her fellow soldiers and her country. The transformation was complete. Private Sarah Chen had become exactly what her grandfather had envisioned when he first placed a rifle in her hands 15 years ago. 6 months after graduation from sniper school, Specialist Sarah Chen found herself deployed to Afghanistan's Kunar province. The mountainous terrain along the Pakistani border presented challenges unlike anything she had experienced during training. Enemy fighters used the rugged landscape to their advantage, appearing briefly before disappearing into caves and hidden compounds. Chen was assigned to Bravo Company, 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. Her unit was tasked with disrupting Taliban supply routes through the mountain passes. The mission required long-range surveillance and precision engagement of high-value targets while operating in extremely hostile territory. Staff Sergeant Mike Torres served as Chin's spotter and team leader. A veteran of 4 combat deployments, Torres had worked with dozens of snipers during his career. He approached their partnership with cautious optimism, tempered by realistic expectations. Fresh out of sniper school, Torres asked as Chun unpacked her equipment at Forward Operating Base Chapman. "Yes, Staff Sergeant. This is my first deployment." Torres nodded. He had seen promising graduates struggle with the transition from training to combat. The psychological pressure of engaging human targets was entirely different from shooting at cardboard silhouettes. Many snipers required months to develop the mental toughness needed for sustained operations. But Chin's file impressed him. Top graduate of her sniper class. Exceptional scores on all technical evaluations. Recommendations from instructors who rarely praised anyone. Her small stature concerned some unit leaders, but Torres knew that combat effectiveness couldn't be measured by physical size alone. Their first mission came 3 days after arrival. Intelligence reports indicated a Taliban commander would transit through a mountain pass approximately 20 kilometers from a base. Chun and Torres would establish an observation post and engage the target if opportunity presented itself. The insertion helicopter dropped them at a landing zone 5 kilometers from their target area. They would have to cross difficult terrain while carrying full equipment loads to reach their assigned position before dawn. Torres watched Chun during the approach march. She moved with efficient economy, never wasting energy on unnecessary movements. Her equipment was organized better than most veterans managed. Most importantly, she maintained noise discipline even when fatigue set in during the final hours of movement. They reached their observation post as the sun appeared above the eastern mountains. The position overlooked a valley frequently used by Taliban fighters moving between safe areas in Pakistan and operational zones inside Afghanistan. Chun established her rifle position with practiced efficiency. Range cards to potential target locations. Ballistic calculations for varying distances. Communication checks with the base. Everything accomplished with minimal conversation and maximum attention to detail. Torres appreciated her professional approach. Many new snipers were either overconfident or paralyzed by uncertainty. Chin demonstrated quiet competence that suggested solid preparation and realistic expectations. The first day passed without target contact, standard for this type of operation. Intelligence was often outdated by the time it reached operational units. Enemy fighters adapted their movement patterns constantly to avoid predictable behavior. During the second night, Torres received updated intelligence over the radio. Multiple enemy fighters had been detected moving toward their observation area. The Taliban commander remained a primary target, but additional opportunities might present themselves. Chun listened to the radio traffic without comment. Torres noticed she showed no signs of nervousness or excitement. Her breathing remained steady. Her equipment checks continued at regular intervals. She was treating potential combat contact as another training exercise requiring careful execution. Dawn brought scatter cloud cover and variable wind conditions. Visibility fluctuated as clouds passed across the sun, creating challenging conditions for long-range observation and engagement. At 0847 hours, movement appeared on the trail system approximately 1,200 meters from their position. Torres identified multiple individuals moving in tactical formation through a spotting scope. "I count 6 individuals," Torres whispered into his radio microphone. "Mixed weapons. Moving northeast along Trail 7. Chun tracked the group through her rifle scope while Torres provided detailed descriptions to their base. One individual appeared to match the description of their primary target, but positive identification would require closer observation. The group paused at a trail junction 800 meters from Chen's position. Through her scope, she could see them discussing route options while maintaining security in all directions. Their movement discipline suggested experienced fighters rather than amateur recruits. Torres confirmed target identification through his higher-powered spotting scope. "Positive identification on primary target," he whispered. "Range 800 meters. windage approximately 15 miles per hour from the northwest. Chun made mental calculations while tracking the target through her scope. The range was well within her capabilities under ideal conditions. But the gusty mountain winds and intermittent cloud cover created complications that required careful timing. Target is static for movement planning, Torres continued. Estimate 60 seconds before they resume movement. Chun controlled her breathing while waiting for optimal shooting conditions. The target stood partially concealed behind a large boulder, exposing only his upper torso and head. A challenging shot, even without environmental complications. Through her scope, Chun could see the target gesturing toward different trail options. He appeared to be the group leader based on how the others deferred to his decisions. Eliminating him would significantly disrupt enemy operations in the region. Wind flags positioned throughout the valley indicated swirling conditions that would affect bullet trajectory. Chun tracked the wind patterns while maintaining sight picture on her target. The shot would require precise timing to catch a momentary lull in the gusting conditions. Winds decreasing, Torres whispered. Target remains static. Clear to engage when ready. Chun felt her heartbeat slow as she entered the zone of concentrated focus her grandfather had taught her years ago. External distractions faded away. Her world narrowed to the precise relationship between her rifle, the target, and the environmental conditions affecting bullet flight. The crosshairs settled naturally on the target's center mass. Chen's breathing cycle synchronized with her intended shot timing. Her trigger finger took up slack in the firing mechanism. Everything prepared for the critical moment when all conditions aligned perfectly. A brief lull appeared in the wind patterns. Chen recognized the opportunity immediately. Her rifle fired with the clean break of a perfect trigger pull. Through his spotting scope, Torres watched the bullet impact exactly where Chun had aimed. The target collapsed immediately, eliminated by a precisely placed shot at 800 meters under difficult conditions. Direct hit, Torres confirmed over the radio. Primary target eliminated. The remaining enemy fighters scattered immediately, seeking cover among the rocks and vegetation. Within seconds, they had disappeared from view, demonstrating the tactical withdrawal skills that made them so difficult to engage in this terrain. Chun worked the bolt of her rifle and scanned for additional targets while Torres called in the successful engagement to their base. Standard procedure called for immediate withdrawal from the position to avoid enemy retaliation. They gathered their equipment efficiently and moved to a predetermined alternate position. The Taliban fighters would likely call for reinforcements and attempt to locate the sniper team that had eliminated their commander. During their movement to the extraction point, Torres reflected on Chen's performance. The shot itself had been technically excellent, but her overall conduct impressed him even more. She had remained calm under pressure, executed proper procedures, and demonstrated the mental discipline needed for sustained sniper operations. "How do you feel about your first combat engagement?" Torres asked during a brief rest halt. Chen considered the question carefully. "Like I did exactly what I was trained to do, Staff Sergeant. Nothing more, nothing less." Torres nodded approvingly. Some snipers became emotional after their first kill, either celebrating too much or struggling with guilt. Chen's matter-of-fact acceptance suggested she understood the professional nature of her duties. Over the following weeks, Chen's reputation grew throughout the battalion. Her shooting accuracy was consistently exceptional, but her tactical judgment impressed the officers even more. She engaged only when conditions favored success and never took unnecessary risks that might compromise her position. The Taliban began changing their movement patterns in response to her presence. Known commanders avoided areas where Chen's team operated. Supply routes shifted to more concealed terrain that offered fewer engagement opportunities. Lieutenant Colonel James Harrison, the battalion commander, summoned Chun to his office after her third successful engagement. "Specialist Chun, your performance has exceeded every expectation," Harrison said. "Your work is having a measurable impact on enemy operations in this sector." "Thank you, sir. I'm just doing my job." Harrison smiled at her straightforward response. "Your job, as you call it, is one of the most challenging assignments in the military. Not everyone can handle the pressure. Chun understood the compliment, but remained focused on professional development rather than praise. Is there additional training available, sir? I want to make sure my skills stay sharp. Harrison was impressed by her attitude. Most young soldiers sought recognition for their achievements. Chun was more interested in continued improvement than accolades. Actually, there is something I want to discuss with you, Harrison continued. Intelligence has identified a particularly challenging target that requires someone with your specific skill set. He briefed Chun on a Taliban leader who had been orchestrating attacks against coalition forces throughout the province. The individual moved constantly between hidden positions, never staying in one location long enough for conventional military operations to target him. But intelligence indicated he would attend a meeting at a remote compound in 3 days. The compound was located in extremely difficult terrain that prevented close approach by ground forces. Only a long-range precision shot could eliminate him without alerting his security forces. The engagement range would be approximately 1,400 meters, Harrison explained. Environmental conditions will be challenging due to altitude and mountain winds. This is not a mission I would assign to most snipers. Chun listened to the briefing without showing any reaction to the extreme difficulty of the proposed shot. 1,400 meters was beyond the range most snipers ever attempted in combat. Success would require perfect execution of every fundamental skill. What's the time window for the engagement? She asked. Extremely brief. Intelligence estimates he'll be exposed for less than 60 seconds during his arrival at the compound. You'll have one opportunity for a successful shot. Chun nodded. The mission parameters reminded her of the final scenario during sniper school, but with significantly higher stakes and more challenging conditions. I'll need 48 hours to study the terrain and plan the approach, she said. Harrison agreed to her timeline. Chun spent the next 2 days analyzing satellite imagery, weather forecasts, and available intelligence about the target compound. She calculated ballistic solutions for various environmental conditions and identified multiple firing positions that might offer engagement opportunities. Torres assisted with the mission planning while expressing concerns about the extreme range and limited opportunity for success. This is pushing the boundaries of what's possible, he said. Even if everything goes perfectly, factors beyond our control could affect the outcome. Chun understood his concerns, but she also remembered her grandfather's advice about accepting challenges that matched her capabilities while avoiding missions that were truly impossible. The range is manageable with the right conditions, she replied. The key will be position selection and timing. If we can't get optimal conditions, we don't take the shot. Torres appreciated her realistic assessment. Chun wasn't allowing ego or external pressure to influence her tactical judgment. She would engage only if conditions favored success. The insertion helicopter departed at 0200 hours, flying under night vision conditions to avoid enemy detection. Chun and Torres would have to approach the target area on foot across 15 kilometers of mountainous terrain. They reached their planned observation post as dawn broke over the mountains. The target compound lay in a valley 1,400 meters below their position. Chun established her rifle while Torres prepared his spotting equipment. The waiting began. Intelligence was never completely accurate. The target might arrive early, late, or not at all. Chun and Torres would remain in position until the mission window closed or they received orders to withdraw. Chun used the waiting time to study wind patterns and environmental conditions through her scope. Mountain valleys created unpredictable air currents that could affect bullet trajectory in ways that were impossible to calculate precisely. At 1,315 hours, vehicles appeared on the road leading to the target compound. Torres identified multiple SUVs approaching in tactical formation. The convoy matched intelligence descriptions of how the target usually traveled. Possible target convoy approaching, Torres whispered into his radio. Multiple vehicles, estimated arrival in 10 minutes. Chun prepared her rifle for the engagement while continuing to monitor wind conditions. The shot would be at the extreme edge of her equipment's capabilities, requiring perfect environmental conditions and flawless execution. The convoy vehicles stopped at the compound entrance 1,400 meters below Chen's position. Through her rifle scope, she watched armed guards emerge first, establishing security around the vehicles. Their movement patterns suggested well-trained professionals rather than amateur militia fighters. Staff Sergeant Torres tracked the scene through his high-powered spotting scope, providing detailed descriptions of each individual who emerged from the vehicles. The target would be identifiable by specific physical characteristics and clothing described in their intelligence briefing. Multiple individuals exiting vehicles, Torres whispered into his radio microphone. Establishing perimeter security. No positive identification on primary target yet. Chen controlled her breathing while maintaining sight picture through her scope. At 1,400 meters, individual features were difficult to distinguish even with high-quality optics. She would depend on Torres for target identification while preparing for what might be the most challenging shot of her career. Mountain winds swirled through the valley in unpredictable patterns. Chen studied the movement of vegetation at various distances to understand how air currents might affect bullet trajectory. The shot would require precise calculation of multiple environmental factors that could change dramatically in the time it took her bullet to travel to the target. Target identified, Torres said quietly. Individual in dark, clothing exiting the second vehicle. Matches physical description exactly. Range 1,410 meters. Chen located the individual through her scope. The target appeared briefly before moving toward the compound entrance. Chen would have only seconds to engage when he next appeared in an exposed position. Environmental conditions were marginal for precision shooting at extreme range. Crosswinds gusted to 20 miles per hour with variable direction. Altitude effects were significant at their mountain location. Temperature differences between their position and the target area would affect bullet trajectory. Most critically, Chen was pushing her equipment beyond its intended specifications. Her M24 rifle system was designed for precision shooting at ranges up to 800 meters. The 1,400-meter shot would require perfect execution to overcome the ballistic limitations of her ammunition and optics. Target moving toward building entrance, Torres continued. Estimate 30 seconds before he reaches cover. Chen made rapid mental calculations based on her ballistic charts and observed wind conditions. The shot would require significant elevation and windage corrections that left little margin for error. A small miscalculation would result in a complete miss at this range. Through her scope, Chen watched the target pause at the compound entrance to speak with security personnel. This might be her only opportunity for engagement before he disappeared into the building. The target stood in partial concealment behind a concrete wall, exposing only his upper torso and head. At 1,400 meters, the visible target area was smaller than a dinner plate when viewed through her rifle scope. She would need to place her shot within inches of her intended point of aim. Target static at building entrance, Torres whispered. Clear line of sight. Windage northeast at approximately 15 miles per hour. Chen settled her rifle into perfect stability while calculating her final firing solution. Range 1,410 meters. Elevation correction significant due to the downhill angle and extreme distance. Windage compensation for crosswinds that could push her bullet several feet off target. Her crosshairs settled on the target's center mass. Chen's breathing cycle synchronized with her intended shot timing. Her trigger finger took up slack in the firing mechanism. Everything prepared for the critical moment when environmental conditions aligned with her calculations. Through her scope, Chen could see the target beginning to move toward the building entrance. Within seconds, he would be inside the compound and beyond engagement range. This was her only opportunity. Wind flags in the valley showed a momentary decrease in air movement. Chen recognized the brief window immediately. Her rifle fired with the clean break that her grandfather had taught her to achieve 15 years ago. The bullet began its journey across 1,400 meters of mountain air. Flight time would be approximately 1.5 seconds, during which environmental conditions could change and affect trajectory. Chen tracked her target through the scope, while Torres observed bullet impact through his spotting equipment. At extreme range, even the speed of light created delays in observing shot results. Torres would see the bullet impact before Chun heard the sound through her rifle scope. "Hit," Torres said quietly. "Direct impact center mass. Target is down." Through her scope, Chun watched the target collapse immediately. Security personnel around the compound reacted with confusion and alarm, unsure of the direction for which the shot had originated. The extreme range made source identification nearly impossible for anyone in the target area. "Confirm target elimination," Torres continued over the radio. "Mission accomplished." Chun worked the bolt of her rifle and prepared for immediate withdrawal from their position. Standard procedure required rapid movement to alternate locations before enemy forces could organize retaliation efforts. The successful engagement at 1,400 meters represented extraordinary shooting under challenging conditions. Chun had achieved what most military experts considered nearly impossible with standard sniper equipment. Her shot would be studied and analyzed by training instructors for years to come. But Chun's focus remained entirely professional. She gathered her equipment efficiently and prepared for movement to their extraction point. The mission was complete, but their safe return to base required continued tactical discipline. During their withdrawal movement, Torres reflected on what he had witnessed. In 22 years of military service, he had never seen shooting of this caliber. Chun had accomplished something that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible in precision shooting. "I was fortunate that conditions aligned perfectly when I needed them to." Torres smiled at her humble response. Chun consistently attributed success to preparation and favorable circumstances rather than individual skill. This attitude would serve her well as her reputation continued to grow throughout the military. Their extraction helicopter arrived on schedule at the predetermined landing zone. The flight back to base gave Chun time to process what she had accomplished. The 1,400-meter shot represented the culmination of years of training and months of combat experience. But Chun understood that exceptional achievements created new expectations and responsibilities. Unit commanders would assign increasingly difficult missions based on her demonstrated capabilities. Future targets would be even more challenging as her reputation grew among both friendly and enemy forces. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison debriefed Chun immediately upon their return to base. Intelligence agencies wanted detailed information about the engagement for analysis and future planning purposes. "Specialist Chun, what you accomplished today exceeds every performance standard in our training manuals," Harrison said. "That shot will change how we think about long-range precision engagement." Chun provided technical details about her ballistic calculations, environmental observations, and execution techniques. Her matter-of-fact description impressed Harrison as much as the shot itself had. "How did you maintain confidence at that extreme range?" Harrison asked. "I trusted my training and equipment, sir. My grandfather taught me that doubt creates hesitation, and hesitation causes missed opportunities." Harrison made notes for his report to higher headquarters. Chun's achievement would influence training programs and equipment development throughout the military. Her techniques would be studied and incorporated into advanced sniper curricula. Over the following days, news of Chun's extraordinary shot spread throughout the special operations community. Requests for interviews and training demonstrations arrived from multiple agencies. Chun's small-town background and exceptional military performance created a compelling story that captured public attention. But Chun remained focused on her primary responsibilities rather than external recognition. She continued daily training routines to maintain shooting proficiency. She studied intelligence reports to understand evolving enemy tactics. Most importantly, she prepared for future missions that would test her skills under different conditions. 3 weeks after the 1,400-meter engagement, Chun received orders for reassignment to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. She would join an elite training unit responsible for developing advanced sniper techniques and instructing other military personnel. The transition from operational deployment to training responsibilities represented recognition of her exceptional abilities. Military leadership wanted to leverage her experience to improve sniper programs throughout the Army. Staff Sergeant Torres submitted Chin's final evaluation before her departure from Afghanistan. His assessment documented her technical proficiency, tactical judgment, and professional character in terms that left no doubt about her exceptional qualifications. Specialist Chun represents the absolute pinnacle of sniper capabilities, Torres wrote. Her achievements in combat exceeded every expectation and established new standards for precision shooting excellence. She will undoubtedly become one of the most influential sniper instructors in military history. Chin's deployment statistics supported Torres's assessment. 12 confirmed eliminations at ranges from 400 to 1,400 meters. 0 mission failures. 0 compromised positions. Perfect execution under every condition she encountered during 6 months of combat operations. But Chin's most significant achievement was proving that exceptional performance came from dedication, training, and mental discipline rather than physical advantages or natural talent. Her success inspired other soldiers who had been told they weren't suited for elite military occupations. On her final day at Forward Operating Base Chapman, Chun visited the memorial wall honoring soldiers who had died during operations in Afghanistan. She reflected on the responsibilities that came with surviving combat when others had not. Her grandfather had taught her that military service was about something larger than individual achievement. The precision shooting skills she had developed were tools for protecting fellow soldiers and defending the values they had sworn to uphold. Chin's deployment was ending, but her commitment to excellence continued. The training position at Fort Bragg would allow her to share knowledge with the next generation of military snipers. Her techniques and experience would influence countless future operations. As the transport aircraft lifted off from the airfield in Afghanistan, Chun looked down at the mountainous terrain where she had established her reputation. The impossible shot at 1,400 meters had changed her life and career in ways she was only beginning to understand. But Chin's focus remained on the future rather than past achievements. New challenges awaited at Fort Bragg. Advanced training programs needed development. Young soldiers required instruction in the skills that could save their lives in combat. The impossible shot had made Chin famous within military circles. Her real legacy would be measured by how effectively she transferred that expertise to others who would carry on the mission of protecting American forces around the world. Years later, military historians would identify Chin's 1,400-meter engagement as a turning point in long-range precision shooting doctrine. Her achievement proved that exceptional performance was possible when proper training combined with mental discipline and tactical judgment. But Chin herself preferred to remember her grandfather's final lesson about military service. Individual achievements were important only when they contributed to the larger mission of defending freedom and protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The impossible shot had been accomplished. The real work of honoring that achievement was just beginning.